Hi, this is Yolanda Vanveen from vanveenbulbs.com. And in this segment, we're going to talk about how to store calla lily bulbs. Now, calla lilies are a beautiful addition to your garden, and they're native to South Africa. So in South Africa, they go dormant when there's no rain in the summer, and then they just die down to nothing. And then when it rains in the fall, they come up and bloom. So when you're growing them in different parts of the world, you can still grow them even somewhere where it freezes, as long as you keep them away from the freeze and keep them in a warmer temperature during the winter. So you treat them just like you would a dahlia or any other tender bulb in a cold climate, and it's pretty easy. So this calla lily is done blooming and the foliage is starting to turn yellow. It doesn't look very good. So at that point, I like to cut it down to the ground and then turn around and take it out of the pot. Now, theoretically too, and a lot of times I will just leave it in that pot, cut it down to the ground, leave it in the pot in the garage, basement, laundry room, somewhere where it's going to stay above freezing. Because if that gets wet and freezes solid, you're going to lose it. If you live in a mild climate where it doesn't freeze very hard, you can also leave them in the ground as long as you put some mulch on top of them, and they'll survive pretty easily. So once you've got them out of the pot, I like to separate them out. So there's many ways that you can store them. When I dig them up, I just leave them loose in these black crates so that they get air and they just stay loose like you would pack a potato or onions. And it's a great way to keep them stored. You can put them in a paper box as well. That's really easy. Another easy trick is just to wrap them in newspapers, just like you would dahlias. And then that way, a lot of times they'll keep a little bit of moisture. Just kind of wrap them up. And I'm a firm believer too, you don't want to keep them too dry at the same time. So a combination is great. So a lot of times I'll wrap them in newspaper and then put them right into a plastic bag and keep the bag open just a little bit so that it can breathe. So the trick with storing calla lilies is to just check on them. If they look really, really dry, just give them some moisture. And you can always add moist soil to them too. A lot of times I'll just leave them in some soil right in a bag as well, and then just check on them. And so as long as it's not too wet or too dry, they'll store. And I found calla lilies 3 years later and planted them, and they've still come up because they store really easily, and they're really a great addition to your garden.